Hey guys, I trust you're well. I'm working again, so I'm filming in my car. I hope you don't mind. And today's case is a doozy, so buckle up. Tara Matekino, I'm probably saying that wrong, Brown, was a beautiful, young, 24-year-old mother who was savagely hunted down by her ex-partner just days after leaving a women's shelter. He chased her down as she was driving and forced her off the road, causing her to crash. And this crash was caught on film. There was people all around, neighbors and passerbys all saw what happened, but nobody expected the horrifying and shocking events that took place just moments after the crash. The murder of Tara is extremely graphic, so I'm only going to go over the details once in this video, and it's not going to be right now. It's going to be in a little bit. I couldn't find a ton of information about Tara's childhood, but what I did find out was that she was born on March 21st, 1991. At Waikato, I'm probably saying that wrong, Women's Hospital in Hamilton, New Zealand. She was born into a huge extended family, and Tara was loved very, very much. She was outgoing and she played touch football, and she was actually a really accomplished player in her area. Her friends say that she never talked poorly of other people, and she always had a smile and a positive attitude. She also had a brother, and she was excited to grow up and have a family of her own. But her childhood wasn't always easy. When Tara was 18, her mom's partner at the time became extremely abusive, and Tara's mom got a domestic violence order of protection, and Tara was listed as an aggrieved party, and this was to be just the first protection order that Tara was named in throughout her lifetime. Tara and her, we'll call him her ex, because you know we don't name these guys on this channel, they had known each other since childhood. His aunt apparently lived around the corner from her childhood home. They also attended the same school and graduated the same year, 2009, but apparently they didn't know each other during school, they just knew of each other. They met again 2 years after they graduated in 2011, and they started dating. But he was not a great guy, and he had a lot of baggage. For one, he had a lengthy history of criminal offenses, starting from when he was a juvenile. He did things like steal cars, assault people. Apparently he had domestic violence protection orders against him, in which he breached. And he showed an overall pattern of coercive control and abusive behavior at a very young age. His history of domestic violence abuse was significant. In a previous relationship, he had punched his partner in the face, pushed her to the ground, kicked her in the head, was extremely possessive and verbally abusive to her. A temporary domestic violence protection order was placed against him, and a month after that, a permanent protection order was put in place. He was convicted of assault, put on probation, and completed a men's domestic violence program where he was deemed as a high-risk offender. And this demonstrates stage 1 of Dr. Monckton's 8 stages of domestic violence homicide. Their relationship developed quite quickly, and within 3 months, Tara was pregnant. And within a year, the two were living together. This represents stage 2 of the 8 steps of domestic homicide. It was about 6 to 8 months into the relationship where Tara's friends and family started to observe his controlling behavior. One time, her friend picked her up to go to the beach, and it was like 10 minutes away from her house. And as they were driving, Tara's ex called her over and over again, demanding to know what street they were on and what stores they saw. And her friend got super concerned. She was like, "Tara, what's going on?" And Tara was just like, "I don't know." Sometime in March, Tara went to a doctor's appointment. They did a routine domestic violence screening on her, and she reported that she was not scared or fearful and had not been assaulted by her ex. But I highly doubt that's true. And if it was, it didn't last long, because during Tara's pregnancy, he strangled her and pushed her down the stairs. And I'm not exactly sure when this happened. One day he came home and he was like, "I'm in a gang." Tara was totally freaked out. She was like, "What? I'm sorry, what did you say?" And she was begging him to get out. She called her mom hysterical, like, "What do I do?" He completely refused to get out of the gang. Instead, he secured his position as sergeant of arms, which is basically the enforcer for the gang. And he was nasty to Tara before he joined the gang, but once he joined the gang, his behavior became brutal. And she went from his girlfriend to his possession. The first significant and public attack on Tara happened on April 22nd, 2012. She was 9 months pregnant, and I'm a little confused on the events that occurred, but it's my understanding that Tara went to a gas station and she got a chocolate bar, and she didn't get anything for her ex, and this caused him to fly into a rage. He kicked her, pushed her, ripped her dress, and started driving erratically. In response to this, Tara threw a coin at him, like a 50-cent coin at him, and he got super mad. He pulled over the car and ripped her dress completely off, threw trash cans at her, spit in her face, and called her a putrid dog blank slut. Tara was able to find a sarong in her trunk, and she got that and was able to call her mom for help. When her mom got there, Tara was obviously a complete mess. She was hysterical, and her car windshield had been smashed in, something that would happen 3 times within her 4-year relationship with this guy. Her side mirrors were kicked off, and he had thrown her keys somewhere. So her mom immediately packed Tara in her car and drove straight to the police station. But Tara was too afraid to make an official report. She was able to tell them about her windshield and that he had threatened her family with a handgun. It's likely that when she went to the police station this time, it infuriated him on a deeper level than the average person would understand because of his gang affiliation and their perspective on people who talk to the police. And despite Tara not wanting them to, the police actually had enough evidence to file a domestic violence protection order against him on her behalf because of the severity and level of danger that she was actually in. Unfortunately, the police totally dropped the ball, and although this temporary order of protection was put in place on April 23rd, they didn't serve it until June. So Tara went and moved in with her mom. And guess what happened between April and June? Tara had her baby. Tara's water broke. So Tara actually made arrangements with her ex-boyfriend to come pick her up and bring her to the hospital. Her mom wasn't happy about this, but she was like, okay. And when she arrived to the hospital, her focus was on Tara, and she was like really excited and asking Tara all about the events of that morning. And at one point, Tara's ex just stood up and walked out of the room. And about an hour later, he called her screaming so loud that her mother and the midwife in the room could hear him, even though it wasn't on speaker. And he was saying that Tara's mom was a rude B-word and she hadn't greeted him properly, so he was going to come back and off her. Tara started bawling, and the hospital staff got really concerned. And they asked Tara if she wanted security to get involved, but she denied and said that she actually wanted him to be there for the birth of his child. The hospital was aware that there was a protection order in place, and by the 24th, they reported that he was breaching the order. But, since the police hadn't actually served the order of protection, they couldn't charge him for breaching it. And, Tara had wanted to be a mom for so long, and so at that point, she had just had her baby. He was wanting to be back in her life, promising to be good and to respect her and to change his ways, and she just got caught up in it, And so after she had the baby, she went back to her duplex, and it appears he went with her. And at some point, I'm not sure when, but a terrible mistake was made. Tara was talking to a counselor, and they told her that if she continued to make reports about being scared for her safety, that they would have to call Child Protective Services and take the baby. In the following years, there's a huge gap between the time that Tara made these reports against her ex and the reports closer to her death. And I'm pretty sure that there was abuse occurring, but this conversation deterred her from telling anybody outside of her family. In June, she asked the court to revoke the protection order, and they set a hearing for it. On June 18th, a judge denied her application to revoke the protection order and instead issued a permanent one on that date. So she moved back in with her mom on June 25th. And the whole time Tara was with her mom, he continued to call her nonstop. And eventually he figured out where she was. So her mom took her to the police station and they made another report. And he was arrested. When he was released from jail, he called Tara telling her that he wanted to see the baby. And the cycle of abuse continued. Tara went to the court and started the process of getting visitation rights for her ex. She said that he hadn't been violent since July, and she didn't want any further services. The police passively monitored her and her boyfriend for a few months before they officially closed the case on February 8th, 2013. And this is where we see the major gap where Tara doesn't make any reports of violence to the police. In June 2013, she was able to get a job as a personal assistant at a law firm. Obviously, she was reluctant to talk about her relationship, but it wasn't long before his abuse extended to her workplace. He would call her cell phone nonstop, and if she turned her cell phone off or stopped answering it, he would just call the office. And there was more than one person that answered the office phone, so other people were aware of what was happening. At employee events, he would go with her, but he would refuse to go inside, so he would sit outside in the car like a creep for hours just waiting for her. I don't quite understand their money situation, which is kind of ironic because that's exactly what an abuser wants. I do know that they had separate bank accounts, but he had access to hers. And one way he controlled her finances was by forcing her to pay for her and their daughter's living expenses, including food. He also expected Tara to pay rent on the house they were living in which he had purchased. And if he ever got mad at Tara, he would just drain her accounts, leaving her and her daughter with basically nothing. Meanwhile, there's accounts that he always had money and he was spending a lot of money and he was buying things that were necessities like jet skis. There was an unequal financial balance. At this point, we can see that the relationship is extremely toxic and we see Dr. Monckton's third step in her 8 steps of domestic homicide. By this point, it's obvious that the relationship was extremely toxic. The domestic violence cycle was going strong. And by this time, we can see stage 3 of the 8 steps of domestic homicide. When they argued, he would threaten to himself and their dogs, beat up her brother, destroy their house, take everything from her. And several times he threatened to take their daughter away from her, which he actually did on many occasions. There was times where he would punch her in the head when she was holding the baby. He would push her and shove her. At one point, he locked her in the house and told her that she couldn't leave because she was now his property. And he owned her. As the relationship progressed, her family said that she became a shell of who she really was, and you could see the light inside of her just start to dim. He would call her friends up to 30 times a day, demanding to know everything that they knew about Tara. Some of them were so freaked out by it that they actually cut ties with Tara and told her that once she left him, they would come right back to her. One friend in particular had this gut feeling that something awful was going to happen to Tara. Sometime in 2014, he bought Tara a car, and she was really, really excited about it, obviously. But shortly after, he got mad at her about something, and she was never able to figure out what he was mad at her about, and he gave the car to his mom. Talk about a horrifically manipulative person. The abuse escalated and Tara started to get really fearful for her life. She was scared he would turn up at her work and hurt her. She felt she had no option but to tell her boss what was going on. So she did. And in November of 2014, the office implemented a locked door policy where they kept the door locked and anybody who wanted to enter would have to phone the office to be let in. But she was still unable to actually escape the relationship. In 2015, Tara's grandfather passed away. She bought tickets for her and her daughter to go to New Zealand to see her family. Tara was really excited and wanted to spend time with her family. When her ex wanted to go, Tara asked if it would be okay that he stay back, but of course he refused and he bought a ticket anyway. And during this time, we see a lot of pictures on Tara's Instagram, and it seems like they're having a pleasant trip, but we know that social media doesn't always reflect real life. On August 30th, they went to the airport to return to Australia. And at the airport, Tara was texting somebody and her ex saw her from afar. He spit in her face, snatched her phone, accused her of cheating, and started chasing her through the airport until security intervened. She decided that that was it. She was done. She was going to leave. And this was her chance because they had separate flights and she was going to arrive a few hours before he was. So she decided that she was going to go home, pack her stuff, and leave before he came back home. Tara got home, she was racing around, packing all of this stuff, and as she was running out the door to her car, he pulled up. And he caught her in the driveway and he drug her back inside, strangled her, held scissors to her throat, and threatened to cut off her ear, and he verbally assaulted her, calling her names. The attack only stopped because his aunt showed up and intervened in the situation. But as soon as she left, he locked Tara and their daughter in a room, emptied her bank accounts, took her phone, and started messaging her colleagues and friends, pretending to be her, saying that she was having an affair. Then he started posting intimate pictures of her on social media. And at some point, he kicked her out of the house completely. She had some clothes in her car, and so she was able to make it to work the next few days. And she felt she needed to tell her boss about what was going on because obviously the situation was escalating. Tara continued to live out of her car and she made it to work, but her boss noticed that she was receiving a lot of text messages and a lot of phone calls. So he pulled her into his office, knowing what was going on, to see if she was okay. She told him that the situation was escalating.